Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The envelope hit the kitchen table before I even looked up. I am Mark 34, and that sound still lives in my head. My wife stood across from me with her arms tight against her ribs. I could tell this was not about a late bill or some random letter. "Just open it." Her voice did not shake. That scared me more than if she had yelled. She kept her eyes on my hands like she was watching a bomb. I pulled the envelope closer and felt that familiar pressure behind my eyes. Back then I called it a normal headache. Stress screens, grown-up life, all the usual excuses. Now I know better, but in that kitchen I decided it was nothing. I blinked hard once and ripped the corner like it had insulted me. Thick paper slid out and fanned on the table between us. The top page had lines and boxes and a lot of official words. My brain grabbed 3 of them and would not let go. Petition, dissolution, marriage. This some lawyer scare tactic. I tried to laugh and it came out short and bitter. You really paid someone to print drama on nice paper. I did not touch the signature line. That felt like stepping off a roof. It's already filed. She tapped one spot with her finger, not hard, just final. County clerk has it. This is just your copy now. Her wedding ring was missing, and I hated that I noticed so late. Here is the part where I wish I had freaked out better. Begged, fallen to my knees, said some movie speech about love. Instead, my chest went oddly quiet, like someone turned the volume down. I leaned back in my chair like I was bored in a meeting. So that's it. My voice sounded almost calm, which was insane. After everything, you just get a lawyer and peace out. I said it like she had skipped doing the dishes, not ending our life. She looked at me like I had proved her point in one sentence. You have not been everything for a long time. Her hands dropped to her sides, fingers twitching against her jeans. I do not even recognize you when you talk like that. That line hit. I will not lie about that. Not in a soft, sad way, more like a slap that wakes you too fast. Still, my first reflex was to attack, not to listen. Yeah, blame me, that is easy. You keep screaming at people who are not even yelling. She took a breath that sounded like she wanted to swallow the words. You forget stuff you promised, then you swear we never talked at all. Her eyes were red, but nothing fell. She was past the crying stage. Everyone forgets things. I waved it off, which now feels like watching myself from outside. Work is insane. My head hurts all the time, you know that. I rubbed my forehead like that could prove anything, like it was evidence. Here is the messed up part. I actually thought I was being reasonable in that moment. I believed I was explaining simple facts that any fair person would accept. Reading this back, I sound like a guy selling his own delusion. You remember the birthday party last week? She did not phrase it like a question, more like a charge. You left halfway through. You said you were just stepping outside. Her jaw clenched as she stared at the papers between us. In my head the memory flickered, then cut out. I saw balloons, maybe plastic cups, a cake, then nothing. A weird blank spot where normal people have actual moments stored. I shrugged like it was no big deal, because admitting that gap felt worse. I came back. Even now I am not sure if that was true. At the time it rolled out of my mouth like it'd weight. She flinched like I had thrown something heavy straight at her. You did not come back. Her chair scraped as she stepped closer to the table. You texted me at 2 in the morning like nothing happened. Her voice cracked on the last word, and that hurt my pride more than my heart. I stared at her phone on the table and hated it. That stupid rectangle held proof, dates, times, every lie in neat bubbles. I could feel the headache climb from my neck up behind my eyes. The words on my copy of the petition started to blur at the edges. I did not ask to see the texts. I should have. Not because they would have saved the marriage, they would not. More because I had that eerie sense that my own life did not line up. Like someone had edited out scenes and left me to improvise. Why today? I forced my eyes back to her instead of the forms. What was so special about tonight that you had to make it official? My voice hit that low, sharp tone she had started to fear. I heard it too late. Because you scared our kid yesterday. She said it fast, then clamped her mouth shut like she regretted it. That was another crack in the story I was telling myself. I grabbed the nearest excuse before the fear could land. He cries every time I raise my voice. I straightened in my chair, trying to pull myself taller somehow. You know he is sensitive, you baby him, and then it is my fault. I could feel how cruel that sound. As soon as it left my mouth. She backed up one step, not far, just enough. That tiny move hurt more than all her words so far. I am not doing this in front of him again. She glanced toward the hallway like he might appear at any second. He is staying at my sister's tonight. Her voice softened for that one line, then hardened again. I planned this so he would not hear us blow up again. That word planned dug under my skin like she had staged an ambush. You planned this. I repeated it slow, tasting the betrayal and ignoring my part. You got a lawyer, moved him out, served me all nice and tidy. My pulse hammered in my ears, my skull felt one size too small. She did not shout back, that almost unbalanced me. Yes, I planned it because talking to you does nothing anymore. She gestured at the envelope like it could speak for her. This is the only thing you cannot gaslight. That word slid across the table and stuck to me. Gaslight, the internet word I always said did not apply here. I opened my mouth to argue, and nothing smart came out. Maybe you are just dramatic. Yeah, I know, not my finest line. At the time it felt sharp, like a winning point. Now it just reads like a guy swinging blind in the dark. She shook her head slowly, like she had already mourned this version of me. You used to care when I hurt. Her eyes met mine for the first time that night. Now you stare at me like I'm a stranger in your way. She pressed her lips together, like one more sentence might break her. For a second something real punched through my fog. I saw her from before, sitting on the floor laughing with me. Then the pain behind my eyes flared, and the picture snapped off. I grabbed my temples and squeezed, more annoyed than worried. You should see a doctor for that. She watched me rub my head like I had done it 1,000 times. You said you would make an appointment last month. Her tone shifted from angry to exhausted, that scared me more than yelling. I am fine, it is just stress. I straightened again, trying to push the ache down with posture. I have work, I have bills, I do not have time for waiting rooms. I waved my hand like I could erase the subject from the air. Looking back, I hate how sure I sounded. I did not even consider that something might be physically wrong. I treated my own brain like a whiny coworker I could ignore. That choice hangs over every line of this story now. She slid a pen across the table, the cheap kind from her bag. You do not have to sign tonight, I know you will not anyway. She looked at the empty line where my name was supposed to go. I just wanted you to see I am serious this time. This time. Those two words landed heavier than the whole stack of papers. They carried every threat, every fight, every night on the couch. I laughed once, sharp and wrong, just to fill the silence. You think I am the only problem here? The words came out like a challenge, not a question. You talk to people like I am some monster, and you are what, perfect? My hands were flat on the table now, ready to slam down. I think you need help, and you will not get it. Her voice did not rise to match mine, that difference felt brutal. I cannot keep living with a person who might explode any second. She looked at my hands instead of my face, like waiting for impact. For a heartbeat I saw myself the way she did. Jaw clenched, eyes hard, fingers curled like I wanted to break something. The headache pulsed in time with my anger, each throb a tiny warning. I pushed the picture away because hearing her out meant I was guilty. If you walk out, that is on you. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraped loud on the floor. You are the one breaking this family, remember that when he asks. My finger jabbed the air between us, like assigning blame was my job. She swallowed hard, then moved toward the door with slow, steady steps. Her overnight bag sat there already, zipped ready. I had missed that detail. She picked up her keys, then paused and reached for the hook on the wall. Her wedding ring clicked softly as she set it down and left it there. I hope someday you understand that I tried. She spoke without turning around, like she could not bear my face. Maybe when you finally listen to someone who is not me. The door opened with a dull push, and cold air slid into the hallway. The door shut, and the house did not echo or anything dramatic. It just felt smaller, like someone had pulled the walls in a few inches. I stood there with the pen in front of me and my name on the page. The headache surged so hard my vision swam, and the letters crawled away. I did not sign that night. I stacked the papers into a messy pile and shoved them aside. I told myself she would cool off, that this was just her final stunt. I had no idea something inside my skull had already started writing a different story. I barked at my kid before I Eve. And saw his face. Stop slamming doors. The door had barely moved, it was a normal push. He froze in the hallway with his backpack half on, eyes wide. By the time I registered his fear, the anger was already out there. My wife stepped between us with this tiny shift of her body. She did not touch me, just formed a line with her shoulders. Hey, he is fine, you are overreacting again. The word again hung there, heavier than the raised voice. My chest buzzed like someone had wired me wrong. I grabbed my keys from the counter and missed them the first try. The sharp stab behind my forehead flared hard for a second. Maybe if people listened the first time, I would not have to shout. It came out clipped, almost rehearsed, like I had practiced being cruel. I walked past both of them and pretended I did not hear my son sniff. The drive to work felt chopped into pieces. I remember pulling out of the driveway, then suddenly I was in the lot. No music, no call, just chunks of time gone like skipped scenes. I unlocked my car door twice because I thought I had not done it. Little glitches like that freak me out now, back then I shrugged. At the office, a coworker leaned over the divider with a polite smile. Hey, you still good for the client call at 9? My calendar showed the meeting in bright letters, my mind showed nothing. I never agreed to that, stop dumping things on me. His smile melted so fast it almost made me dizzy. It was your idea last week. He held up his phone like proof from a trial. Old messages with my own words stared back at me, familiar but distant. Sure, sounds good, I'll lead, no problem. I felt this weird sliding sensation, like the ground under the conversation shifted. I could have owned it, said my memory was glitchy. Instead I doubled down because pride is a real idiot. You must have misunderstood, I was talking about a different account. Total nonsense, but I delivered it with full confidence. He backed away and something in his expression closed like a locked door. The client call went badly, of course it did. I snapped when they asked basic questions like they were wasting my time. My manager stepped in to smooth things over, voice calm and practiced. I muted myself, rubbed my temples, and stared at my warped reflection in the screen. It felt like watching some bitter stranger screw up my career. Right after the call, my manager asked me into his office. He did it gently, trying not to set me off, which says a lot. Everything okay at home? You seem on edge lately. That word lately made my jaw tighten, like he was keeping score. I folded my arms and leaned back, classic defensive posture. I am under pressure, same as everyone here. I kept my tone flat, trying to sound professional, not hostile. If clients want miracles, they can pay miracle money. He raised his eyebrows, not impressed with my wisdom. You are not yourself, man, that is what worries me. I laughed sharp, too loud for that small room. Everyone throws that line around when they do not like boundaries. I knew I was being a jerk, I pushed anyway. I am just done letting people walk all over me. He watched me like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. You used to be patient with new clients. He tapped his pen against the desk, slow and steady. Now you snap before they finish a sentence, it is messing with the team. My skull pounded in time with the tapping, each hit a small explosion. I wanted to ask him to stop, instead I asked why everyone was so sensitive. On the way out of his office, I bumped another coworker. Not hard, just enough to jolt her coffee. She gasped and jumped back, checking if it spilled on her clothes. Watch where you're going. I fired it off before she could, like preemptive blame. Her eyes flashed hurt, then caution, that new thing I kept seeing. Wow, okay, sorry for having a body in a hallway. I rolled my eyes and walked away as if she had offended me. Inside I felt this quick sting of shame, gone almost instantly. I got very good at stepping over that feeling like it was trash. By late afternoon, the pressure behind my forehead turned into a steady hammer. I popped more over-the-counter pills than the box recommended. There was a printed warning on the label, I ignored it every time. A coworker glanced over and joked about my little pharmacy. I laughed along and said something about adulthood being a headache subscription. Driving home, the same time skip happened again. One second I was in traffic, the next I was pulling into our driveway. I checked the clock and lost 15 minutes I could not place anywhere. No call history, no music history, just blank air where thought should live. I turned off the engine and just sat there, listening to my heart slam around. When I walked in, my wife stood by the door with her arms crossed. "You forgot to pick him up from practice." Those words landed like a weight toss straight at my chest. My son sat on the couch, still in his shoes, staring at some cartoon. He did not look at me when I said his name. "They called me at work, he was the last kid there." She pointed toward our son without taking her eyes off me. "He thought you were stuck in traffic, he covered for you to the coach." That part hurt worse than any lecture. Kids should not have to cover. I opened my mouth and felt lies line up, ready to jump. I did not forget, coach changed the time, no one told me. Total fiction, smooth delivery, automatic by that point. My wife pinched the bridge of her nose like she was holding in a scream. "You confirmed the time yesterday in the group chat." She held up her phone, screen glowing with my own words. I stared at the messages, recognized my typing style, felt nothing behind them. I remembered holding the phone, not what I had typed, like borrowed hands. Somebody must have edited that, phones glitch all the time. Even as I said it, I knew I sounded ridiculous. She let out this disbelieving laugh that ended in a sigh. "You lost track of an entire commitment involving our kid." Her voice dropped low and slow, more dangerous than yelling. "You keep swearing you did things that never happened or never happened that way." I threw my hands up like she was attacking me for sport. "We all forget, you act like I left him on the highway." My son flinched at the word highway and pulled his knees up. He still did not look away from the screen, which felt worse somehow. My wife noticed that reaction and her face went tight. "We are going to talk about this later, not in front of him." She stalked past me to the kitchen, leaving me in the doorway with my guilt. That night my phone buzzed with messages from friends. Group chat blowing up about a poker night, usual jokes, inside stuff. A week earlier I had promised to show up, bring snacks, be social. I stared at the screen and felt nothing, just a dull sense of obligation. I typed "yeah, maybe," and put the phone face down like it offended me. One of them called instead of texting, which almost felt rude. "Come on man, you have blown us off 3 weekends straight." There was laughter under his words, but also a push. "You angry at us or just turning into a ghost?" I looked at the ceiling and said I was exhausted from work. He paused, that heavy kind of pause where you know they are choosing words. "You sound off lately, just checking you are okay." I snapped faster than he could finish the sentence. "I am not a project, stop psychoanalyzing me over beer plans." The silence after that came sharp, like I had hung up even though I hadn't. "All right man, message received." He cleared his throat and shifted to a lighter tone. "We will back off, you know where we are if you feel like talking." I muttered something that might have been thanks, might have been nothing. After we disconnected, I blocked notifications from that chat completely. Blocking them felt powerful for maybe 5 minutes. Then the room felt too quiet, like I had turned off a part of my life. Instead of owning that, I told myself they were childish and needy. I convinced myself that I was growing and they were stuck. Funny how easy it is to rebrand isolation as maturity. The worst blow-ups came out of nowhere over tiny things. A cup left on a table, a reminder about a bill, a joke I took wrong. My reactions felt huge, way bigger than the trigger deserved. I heard myself volume high, words sharp, and kept going anyway. It was like my brakes were gone and all I had was gas. One afternoon I accused my wife of moving my keys on purpose. They were under yesterday's mail, exactly where I had left them. "I am not crazy, I know I put them by the door." My voice rose as I argued over something that trivial. She held the keys out to me with a look that mixed fear and pity. "You used to laugh at stuff like this." Her tone was soft, too soft, like she was approaching a wild animal. "Now everything feels like an attack to you." I grabbed the keys from her hand harder than needed. For a second I thought about apologizing, then that impulse just slipped. Nights got stranger. I would sit on the couch with the TV on and my phone nearby. Next thing I knew, the credits rolled and the room was dark. No memory of the episode, barely any of the texts I apparently sent. I would scroll back and see jokes typed out like they came from a twin. Once I found an email drafted to my manager at 2 in the morning. A long rant about unfair workloads, broken down into bullet points. I had no recollection of writing it, but the wording was definitely mine. The only reason it did not go out was some glitch that left it unsent. I deleted it fast, like it was a loaded weapon I almost fired. You know that feeling when your own mind starts to feel unreliable? Like walking through your house and finding doors you do not remember CL. Oh, sing. That should have terrified me right away, but I pushed it down. I kept telling myself I was just tired, stressed, overworked, all the classics. Admitting it was something worse felt like stepping off a ledge with no ground. My wife tried the gentle approach first. You are not yourself lately, maybe talk to someone just to be safe. She sat beside me on the couch, not too close, hands folded tight. I stared at a game on the screen I was not even following. It is just a rough patch, I do not need a therapist to tell me that. Or a doctor, even just a checkup, your headaches worry me. That word headaches got under my skin faster than anything. I rolled my eyes and rubbed my forehead like that proved her point wrong. They are fine, I take something and it passes, stop making it dramatic. She exhaled slowly, like she had heard that line too many times. The next sign should have been enough by itself. I was in the car with my son in the back seat. We pulled into our driveway and I checked my phone before getting out. 5 minutes later he asked if he could unbuckle now. I realized I had been scrolling while he sat strapped in behind me. Nothing bad happened, we were parked, but the guilt hit hard. He trusted me to notice him, and I had vanished into a screen. Yeah buddy, sorry I zoned out, you are good. I tried to keep my tone light, make it a small oops moment. My hands trembled just enough that I had to stuff them in my pockets. That night, alone in the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. My own eyes looked unfamiliar, meaner, like someone who enjoyed conflict. I lifted my hand and watched it shake, not much, just a faint tremor. For a second, a real cold second, I wondered if something was actually wrong. Then I laughed it off and told myself I was being dramatic again. Here is the ugly truth I keep circling. People warned me gently at first, then louder, then from further away. I chose the version of the story where I was just misunderstood. It felt easier to believe everyone else had changed overnight. By the time I realized how far off track I was, I had already crossed a line I could not uncross. The plate shattered on the tile before I realized it was in my hand. Everyone in the living room went silent for a beat. Music kept playing, kids kept yelling, but our corner froze. My wife stared at the shards by my shoes like they were a crime scene. What is wrong with you? Her voice cut through the noise, low and tight. I had only dropped a plate, that was the first story I told myself. My pulse was racing like I had almost hit someone with the car. I bent down fast and started grabbing the bigger pieces. A sharp edge nicked my finger and a thin line of red appeared. Relax, it slipped, no one died. The room around us slowly went back to party mode, but not really. You know that feeling when people pretend you are not making them nervous. She crouched too, reaching for the trash bag, hands shaking. You slammed it down, you did not just drop it. Her eyes never left my face, not the mess on the ground. There was fear in that look mixed with something colder. That was new, I should have paid attention right there. A friend walked over, trying to make it light. Hey, no blood sacrifices in my kitchen, party rule. He laughed and touched my shoulder, quick and awkward. I jerked away like his hand burned, way too much reaction. The look he gave me then matched hers, guarded and careful. The noise in that house drilled straight into my skull. Kids running past, someone yelling about cake, phones buzzing. Every sound felt like it landed inside my head instead of my ears. I straightened up and pressed my thumb against the cut hard. The throbbing behind my brow surged right on cue. I am stepping out. I did not wait for a response, I just moved. My son reached for my arm as I walked past. Dad, they're doing candles soon, stay. I peeled his hand off gently, then not so gently. I will be back, watch the show with your mom. He dropped his gaze to the floor and nodded too fast. That tiny flinch hit me somewhere deep, then slid away. I pushed through the front door like I needed air more than family. Outside felt better for about 3 seconds. My phone lit up with notifications as soon as I pulled it out. Group chat jokes, work emails, missed calls from an unknown number. Everything stacked on everything until my brain felt stacked too. I opened a message from my manager about a report I had forgot. A fresh spike of irritation shot through me before I finished reading. Of course he picked tonight, of course he did. I typed too fast, fingers flying faster than thought. I told him to stop micromanaging, to handle it himself for once. The words were harsher than the situation, but I did not slow down. I hit send with way too much satisfaction for a simple text. Behind the door, my son's voice rose with the birthday song. I could hear him trying to be louder than the other kids. Something in me wanted to go back in and stand behind him. Instead, I leaned on the hood of our car and closed my eyes. The world tilted just slightly enough to make my stomach drop. I felt like I blinked. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting in the driver's seat. Key in the ignition, seat belt strapped across my chest. I did not remember getting in, did not remember that choice. The dash clock showed 30 minutes gone. I could not explain. I could have gone back into the party right then. I could have turned the car off, walked inside, told her something honest. Instead, I twisted the key and backed out of the driveway. My hands knew what to do even if my mind lagged behind. It felt like watching someone else take my body for a drive. The streets blurred into the same set of turns I take every week. Lights flashed from green to yellow to red faster than they should. A horn blasted to my right as I rolled through an intersection late. Tires squealed, not mine, another car braking harder than needed. I slammed my foot down and shouted at a stranger I could barely see. By the time my heart slowed down, I was in a strip mall lot. Engine still running, hands locked on the wheel, chest heaving. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, buzzing again, then again. I glanced down and saw her name stacked across the screen. Missed calls, messages, voicemail, all screaming in silent fonts. First text. Where are you? Second. He is asking for you. Third. This is not funny, pick up right now. The time stamp on the first one punched me. An hour since I stepped outside, maybe more. I checked the clock and did the math twice, it still felt wrong. I played one of the voicemails, hand hovering over the speaker. Her voice came through thin and tight, like it was holding back a flood. Call me please, I do not know where you went. A beat of silence, then softer. He thinks you left because of him, I cannot fix that alone. Another buzz interrupted the message, another alert over her fear. I killed the playback and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. Here is the part where anyone sane would have called right back. Explained, apologized, admitted something was off, whatever. I stared at the phone like it was accusing me of something worse. Some nasty part of me whispered that she was overreacting again. That voice won because I was very good at feeding it. I picked the phone back up and typed slowly. Sorry, got pulled into something. Be home later. No question, no explanation, just that flat. I hit send and watched the message leave like it solved anything. I do not remember driving home from that parking lot. I know that sounds made up, but there is nothing there. 1 second I was staring at my own reflection in the windshield. The next I was standing in our hallway with my shoes still on. The house was quiet in that way where quiet feels dangerous. She met me halfway down the hall, not giving me time to prepare. Where were you? Her voice was raw, she must have worn it out already. She gripped her phone so hard her knuckles stood out. Every inch of her looked like someone bracing for impact. I told you something came up. I shrugged like we were talking about traffic, not hours of silence. I needed to clear my head, you know how crowded it was. Even as I said it, I could hear how thin it sounded. She blinked slowly, like she was giving the lie time to settle. You disappeared from a child's birthday party. She spat the words out one by one, each heavier than the last. You turned your phone off, you ignored every single call. Her hand shook as she scrolled through her own message list. He sat by the door with his shoes on for an hour. That image hit harder than the car horn earlier. My son waiting with his sneakers tied, watching the door. I felt a crack, a tiny one, open in my chest. I could have leaned into that crack and let it change me. Instead, I plastered over it with anger, my favorite patch job. I did not turn it off, the battery died. Another lie, casual tone, practice pace. I held up the screen bright and at 90%. She glanced at the display, then back at me with this flat stare. Something in her expression said she was done grading my stories. You left me alone to explain why you vanished again. Her words started to shake, not from weakness, from adrenaline. He thought you were mad at him for bumping into you earlier. Her throat worked around the next part like it hurt to say. He asked if you still liked him. Do you get what that means? My face heated in this sudden rush of shame and fury. Not at myself, at her, at the whole situation. Kids say dramatic things all the time. He will forget by morning. I brushed past her into the kitchen like I needed water. Really, I just needed space from the look in her eyes. She followed steps quick, not letting me escape that easily. This is not something he should have to forget. Her voice broke on should, like the word hit a nerve. You keep disappearing, you keep twisting facts. I am losing my mind here. She laid her phone on the counter between us like evidence in a case. On the screen, a row of her texts lined up in order. Under them, my 3 bland words from the parking lot. The gap between them looked huge, like a canyon made of time. Behind her messages, there were more from other nights. Patterns I had refused to see, all piling up in one glowing list. I could have said it then. I do not remember half of this. Something is wrong with me. It sat on my tongue for 1 second, maybe 2. Then pride reached up and pushed it back down my throat. I do not control cell service, sometimes messages do not go through. She laughed once, sharp, almost a bark. Do you hear yourself anymore? Her hand swept across the counter, snatching the phone back. You vanish for hours, come home acting like nothing happened, then blame technology. She tossed the phone onto the table, where it slid and almost fell. You think I am cheating or something? I grabbed the nearest accusation that made me feel less guilty. You always jump straight to worst case with me. I stepped closer, using my height like leverage instead of comfort. It worked on strangers, it did not work on her. I think you are dangerous to be around right now. The word dangerous stopped me cold, no exaggeration there. For him, for me, maybe even for yourself. Her hands were empty, but that sentence felt like a loaded weapon. I felt the urge to laugh in her face just to break the tension. You are being dramatic. I smiled, that cruel little half smile I hate remembering. Nothing happened, I needed space, end of story. The room hummed with all the things that actually had happened. My skull pulsed in time with that hum, an ugly drum beat. She turned toward the hallway leading to our son's room. He woke up 3 times asking if you were hurt. Her shoulders dropped as she leaned against the doorframe. I almost called the police. Do you know how insane that felt? She looked back at me like she did not recognize who she was talking to. You would have embarrassed us over some dead battery drama. The words came out vicious before I rehearsed them. I watched them land on her face and stay there. I work all week, I get 1 night to breathe, and you turn it into a trial. That was the sentence where I felt something break between us. She straightened slowly, spine stiff, eyes suddenly very clear. You did not just say that. Her voice dropped so low I barely caught it. You get 1 night to breathe, I get to explain your disappearing act to our child. Each word stacked on the last, building something heavy and final. Silence stretched out between us, long and wired. I stepped forward, she did not move back this time. Some stupid part of me took that as a challenge. You always wanted a different life, maybe this is your chance. I regret that line more than almost anything I have ever said. Her hand flew to her mouth like she was holding something in. No tears, not then, just that stunned look. You are right. She let her hand fall, fingers shaking slightly. This is my chance and I'm going to take it. She walked past me toward the bedroom without touching my arm. Drawers opened and closed, fast and hard, fabric rustling. I stood in the hall listening, frozen in place. I could hear myself thinking she is bluffing, she always cools off. I leaned on that thought like a crutch instead of moving. Our son's door creaked open and he peered out. Are you and Mom mad at each other again? His voice sounded small, too careful for a kid his age. I forced my mouth into something like a smile. Go back to bed, everything is fine, buddy. He stared at me for a second like he did not quite buy it. Then he closed the door without another word. That tiny quiet rejection cut deeper than the earlier car scare. I still did not go after him or after her. I stayed planted, stubborn, waiting for her to calm down first. She came out with a duffel on her shoulder, jaw set. This is not working anymore. She did not raise her voice, did not need to. I cannot keep wondering if tonight is the night you disappear and do not come back. She glanced toward our son's room and her face cracked for half a second. If you walk out now, you are wrecking this family. It was my last move, the guilt card, cheap and obvious. You will be the one who left, remember that. I pointed toward our son's door like a weapon. I will make sure he knows who walked. She stopped, turned fully to face me, eyes burning. I will not let you twist this for him too. Her voice shook but stayed steady enough to hit every word. He will know I tried, and he will know you scared us. That last part landed like a punch, right where my confidence lived. She opened the front door and a rush of cool night air swept in. I am calling someone tomorrow, lawyer, counselor, I do not care which comes first. She stepped onto the porch without looking back. Tonight was my line, you crossed it, you kept going. The door closed before I decided whether to follow. I stood there staring at the wood grain like it could answer something. My head pounded so hard my vision pulsed with it. I tried to replay the night in order and found holes all over. Chunks of time missing, words I apparently said that I could not recall. That should have terrified me, instead I clung to one excuse. She is overreacting, I will fix this when she cools down. That was the lullaby I gave myself as I dropped onto the couch. TV flickered in front of me, I could not tell you what was on. At some point my phone buzzed with another message from my manager. I ignored that too, because I was very busy pretending nothing had broken. Looking back, that was the actual end. The papers later were just the official record. That night in the kitchen, in the hallway with the door closing. That was when she stopped thinking of me as a safe person. I wish I could say I saw it then, but I did not even close. I was in the middle of a sentence when my vision jumped. Conference room, end of day, people waiting for my point. The table tilted a little, then a lot, then snapped back. Words kept coming out of my mouth, but they felt shuffled. Mark, you okay? Someone closer than they should be, hand on my shoulder. My tongue felt thick, like I had bitten it by accident. I am fine, let me finish, I know what I am saying. I heard myself and it sounded wrong, like a bad recording. Laughter died around the table in this weird, slow way. A coworker slid the water bottle toward me, eyes wide. Drink, man, you are not making sense right now. I tried to grab it and missed by a lot. My hand landed on the table, fingers numb, useless. I pushed my chair back too fast and almost toppled. The room stretched away from me like a bad camera trick. My heart hammered, the same old headache roared to life. Except this time it was everywhere, not just behind my eyes. I just need air, move, you are crowding me. Someone blocked the doorway with both arms spread. Sit down, you are scaring everyone, you are white as paper. I tried to shove past him and my legs simply disagreed. Knees buckled, floor rushed up, everything went black in one swing. That is the last frame I remember clearly from that room. Next thing I knew, a siren wailed just above my head. I was on my back, strapped to something hard and narrow. A mask covered my face, too tight, plastic taste in my mouth. Sir, stay with us, can you tell me your name? I knew my name but my tongue lagged behind. I am fine, this is too much, stop overreacting. That was my big statement, slurred and useless, very on brand. Someone squeezed my hand, strong, steady, not my wife. We are almost there, hang in, keep your eyes open for me. My lids felt like they had weights sewn into them. The ambulance doors burst open, air hit my face cold. Bright ceiling panels slid above me as they rolled the gurney. Voices tossed numbers back and forth, blood pressure, heart rate, time. They sounded more annoyed than panicked, which calmed me a little. If they were not freaking out, why should I write? A nurse leaned over and clicked something on my wrist. How long have the headaches been happening, be honest with me? Couple weeks, nothing crazy, just stress, everyone gets them. The words felt automatic, like I had rehearsed this denial. Her mouth tightened in a way that said she believed none of it. They parked me in a curtained space and started attaching wires. Every movement made my skull throb like someone tightened a belt. A doctor pulled the curtain back and stepped in close. We are going to do some imaging, make sure nothing serious is going on. Imaging sounded routine enough that I relaxed, which was stupid. He ran through questions while someone took blood from my arm. Any changes in mood, anything your family noticed? I almost laughed right in his face at that one. Ask my wife, she thinks I turned into a monster lately. It came out half joke, half bitter confession. He did not smile, that should have been a clue. Mood can be affected by physical issues, not just stress. He looked straight at me like he had said this before. Blackouts, memory gaps, moments you cannot piece together. He watched my reaction more than my answer. I stared at the blanket, counting creases, stalling. Everyone zones out, I have a lot on my plate. He made a small note on the chart, short and decisive. Have you ever actually lost time, not just daydreamed? His tone shifted on those two words, lost time, heavier. Images flashed in my head, all the recent missing pieces. The driveway to the office, the birth. Party door, the parking lot. I felt my mouth go dry and my heartbeat jump. I have blank spots sometimes, nothing huge, I still function. That was the best compromise my pride could manage. He nodded once, like that confirmed something he already suspected. Okay, we will do a CT first, probably an MRI too. He glanced at the monitor, then back at my face. I am not trying to scare you, but we need to be thorough. That word thorough vibrated in my chest in a weird way. They wheeled me down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant. No art, no music, nothing to focus on but my thoughts. The ride only lasted minutes, my head turned it into hours. Every bump sent a jolt through my skull, sharp and deep. I gripped the railing and counted my breaths to stay calm. Inside the imaging room, the machine waited like some giant mouth. Lie still, this will be fast, you will hear some noise. They slid me onto the narrow platform and positioned my head. A brace clamped around my forehead, pressing on the sore spot. I forced myself not to rip it off and walk out. The table moved and the scanner closed around my head. The sound started, mechanical, repetitive, insanely loud. I stared at one tiny screw in the top panel, unblinking. If I moved, they would have to redo everything, that was the rule. Sweat ran into my ears, my jaw clenched so hard it ached. In that tube, my brain finally started telling me the truth. All the missed exits, the forgotten promises, the wild swings. I saw them lined up like dominoes in slow motion. Maybe this is not you being an idiot, maybe something is broken. That thought scared me more than any divorce paper. They pulled me out eventually, everything echoing in my head. Good job, we have what we need, we will get you back to your room. I wanted to ask what they saw right then. The tech just gave that neutral professional smile that means nothing. No results yet, the doctor will talk to you as soon as possible. Back in the curtain space, my phone rested on the tray. 10 missed calls from the same contact, a couple from work. I reached for it, hands shaking more than I liked. Before I could unlock it, the curtain flew open. My wife walked in fast, hair messy, eyes wild. What happened? She stopped just short of the bed, hands clenched tight. They called me from some number, they said you collapsed. Her stare swept over the wires and the band around my arm. For once, she looked more frightened than furious. I am fine, they are just being extra careful. I heard that line and wanted to punch my past self. She took one step nearer and tapped the rail sharp. You passed out in front of a room full of people. Her chest rose and fell like she had sprinted. She looked at my wristband, then back at my face. Have you been to a doctor before this at all? I avoided her eyes and pretended to adjust the blanket. They asked about headaches, nothing major, just the usual. I sounded like a teenager caught doing something stupid. Her voice dropped low and fierce. I told you to get checked 3 times, maybe more. She shook her head like she could not believe me. Do you ever listen to anyone or only when you are forced? The worst part, she was not wrong. The doctor reappeared before I could answer. He nodded at her, then shifted his attention to me. We have the scan, I want to go over it with both of you. He pulled up an image on the screen beside the bed. I saw my own skull in shades of gray and white. This is your brain, this darker area here is concerning. He pointed at a shape near the front, obvious once he showed it. It appears to be a mass, likely a tumor, we need to investigate further. I stared at the shape like it might move on its own. My mouth opened and no sound came out for a full second. A tumor. The word felt heavy on my tongue, thick and unreal. Like cancer, or are there other types I do not know? My chest tightened, my fingertips went numb again. My wife grabbed the rail with both hands and stayed silent. He kept his tone calm, almost steady, which helped and annoyed me. We cannot say what kind until we do more testing. Another tap on the screen, this time near the front section. But the location explains a lot of what you described earlier. He paused, letting that sentence hang between us. What do you mean explains what? My voice cracked in the middle like a cheap board. He folded his arms loosely, still looking at the image. This region controls impulse control, emotional regulation, personality. Each term hit harder than the last one. He turned back toward us and spoke slower. Changes in behavior, poor judgment, memory trouble, sudden anger. He listed my greatest hits in one smooth rundown. These can all occur when something is pressing in this area. The room seemed to shrink as the words hung there. So all this time his brain was different. My wife finally spoke, eyes locked on the glowing scan. She sounded stunned, not relieved, not yet. Her grip on the metal rail tightened until her knuckles paled. I could see her replaying every fight behind her eyes. We still have to be careful with conclusions. He held up a hand, not in a stop gesture, more like caution. Behavior is complex, environment and choices still matter. Then he glanced at me, very direct, no softness now. But this finding is significant, and it did not appear overnight. My instinct was to protest, defend whoever I thought I was. I am not violent, I did not hurt anyone, I just get frustrated. Even as I said it, scenes flashed that did not match. My son flinching, coworkers backing away, doors slamming too hard. The contrast between my words and reality burned hot. We are not saying you are a bad person. He chose each phrase like it might explode. We are saying your brain has been under strain for a while. Then he pointed at the scan again, at that ugly little shadow. If this grows, it can cause much worse events than today. Worse than blacking out in a meeting. My laugh sounded sharp and empty. What counts as worse exactly? He did not pretend it was a silly question. Seizures, changes in awareness, permanent damage, you name it. My wife covered her mouth with her hand and took a step back. I watched her body absorb the list like punches. For the first time since we fell apart, she moved closer to me. One hand came to rest lightly on my forearm. It was a careful touch, like she was not sure I would allow it. What now? My voice came out smaller than I wanted, plain scared. He pulled a printed sheet from a folder and laid it down. Next is MRI, then biopsy, then likely surgery. Those last two words rang in my ears like an alarm. Surgery, as in you go into his head. My wife's gaze flicked between him and me. I imagined actual hands on my brain and my stomach twisted. We do this procedure routinely, but it is never minor. He did not sugarcoat that part, which I weirdly respected. He explained risks, infection, bleeding, things going wrong. Words like deficits and rehabilitation and follow-up dropped in. I heard maybe half of it, the rest blurred under one thought. Something has been growing inside me, while I blamed everyone else. That realization sat heavy, impossible to ignore anymore. He stepped out to get paperwork, leaving us alone. The curtain swayed behind him and then stilled. For a moment neither of us spoke, just listened to monitors beep. Finally she let go of my arm and took a breath that shook. I do not even know what to feel about this. Feels like a convenient excuse, right? The sentence left my mouth before I screened it. If I believed in karma, I would say this is too neat. I stared at the scan, at that dark patch near the front. That shape had more power over my reputation than any story I told. Her eyes filled, but the tear did not fall. Part of me wants to scream that it changes everything. She looked at the image, then at me, then back again. Part of me wants to scream that it changes nothing. Both parts looked equally real on her face. I knew exactly what she meant even then. The tumor might explain the worst version of me. It did not erase the words I used or the fear I caused. That double truth sat between us like another person in the room. I could not decide which side I wanted to lean on. You still filed. It sounded accusing, even though I tried to keep it neutral. She stared me down, not blinking, not apologizing. I filed because I was scared and out of options. Her jaw clenched as she added the next part. If a doctor had shown me this 3 months ago, maybe different. She shrugged once, tight and bitter. Maybe I would have dragged you here myself and never left your side. Her voice cracked on never, then steadied. But I did not have this picture, I only had your behavior. That hurt in a way I actually deserved. It also gave me my first tiny sliver of understanding for her. She had been living with the symptoms with no label attached. All of the fallout, none of the context. Meanwhile, I insisted nothing was wrong beyond regular stress. The doctor came back with consent forms and a schedule. We can get the MRI tonight, surgery within the week if all lines up. Within the week sounded way too fast and not fast enough. He placed a pen beside the signature line and waited. I stared at that blank space, thinking of the unsigned divorce copy at home. 2 different documents, both asking for my name. One to end a marriage, one to open my skull. In the end, I signed the medical one first. My hand shook so much the letters looked like a stranger's. He took the clipboard back and promised more details soon. After he left, the room felt strangely quiet again. Machines hummed, footsteps echoed past the curtain, life continued. Inside that little square of space, everything had shifted. I was not just the angry husband anymore, not just the villain. I was also the guy with a mass in his head and a countdown to surgery. My wife finally sank into the plastic chair beside the bed. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, staring at the floor. Do you remember yelling at me about you being fine? The question floated out soft, but it still had teeth. I nodded once because denying that now felt ridiculous. I kept thinking I was weak for being scared of you. She rubbed her hands together like she was washing something off. Now I am scared of what they will do to you in there. Her eyes drifted back to the image on the monitor. And I am still mad that we got here this way. Both emotions lived in her voice at the same time. Concern for the patient, resentment for the husband who ignored her. I did not have a speech ready for that combination. All I could manage was a simple truth for once. I am terrified too, and I do not know who I am without this thing. She looked at me like she was trying to see the old version. The one from before the mood swings, before the lies, before the blanks. Maybe she saw flashes of him, maybe she did not. Her hand inched back toward mine, then stopped halfway. That tiny hesitation hurt more than the IV in my arm. That night they wheeled me off again for the MRI. Longer tunnel, louder noise, more time alone with my thoughts. I lay there and listened to the machine hammer around my skull. Somewhere on the other side of the wall, people studied slices of my mind. They would tell me what they found in the morning, and nothing in my life would be the same after that. They drew an arrow on my head with a marker. That was the first thing I felt that morning. Cold tip on my scalp, nurse bracing my chin steady. Hold still, they like to know where they are going. I tried to laugh and my throat came out dry. My ex stood near the foot of the bed, arms folded. She watched the marker move like it was carving, not drawing. You sure about this? Her voice was low, aimed straight at me, not the staff. I nodded because pretending I had options felt pointless. The surgeon walked in with that clipped, rehearsed calm. Imaging looks consistent with a benign mass, still needs removal. He checked the chart, then my eyes like he was lining up pieces. We go in here, we avoid vital areas, that is the plan. Plan sounded small compared to cutting into a skull. Worst case. I forced the question out before I lost nerve. He took a breath and did not look away. Personality shifts, weakness, speech problems, seizures, even death. The room lurched on that last word, even though I asked for it. My ex's fingers dug into the bed rail until they trembled. If you do nothing, what happens? She stared at him like he was holding our whole life. He glanced at the scan pinned to the chart. It grows and the odds move against him fast. They handed her a stack of forms and turned to me. An anesthesiologist checked the IV line with practiced hands. You will feel heavy, then nothing, next thing you know you are done. He adjusted a clear mask above my face, hovering. Think of something nice, not your email inbox. I wanted to think about beaches or some fake calm place. Instead I saw my kid's face the night I disappeared. Eyes red, shoes still on, waiting by the door. That image burned hotter than any vacation dream. Tell him I am sorry if I do not wake up. My ex leaned closer, jaw clenched, eyes glassy. Do not you dare dump that on him. She gripped the rail like it was keeping her upright. You tell him yourself when you are out of this. Her hand brushed my wrist for half a second, then pulled back. Mask lowered, plastic smell and cold air rushing. Count backwards from 10 for me. I made it to 7 before my tongue forgot numbers. The ceiling blurred, voices turned into distant noise. Then someone hit a switch in my head and everything dropped. Next frame, bright sting in my throat and noise everywhere. I surfaced fast like something yanked me up from deep water. My head felt packed, not painful yet, just wrong. Mark, can you open your eyes? Can you hear me? I opened them because I was suddenly terrified not to. The recovery area buzzed, monitors beeping near and far. A nurse leaned over me, checking pupils with a small light. Follow my finger, squeeze my hand, move your toes. I did each thing slow, but I did them. Relief washed over her face in this obvious human way. My ex appeared beside the bed, hair messy, expression wrecked. You are here. Her voice cracked on here like that word carried everything. You know who I am. I nodded and muttered her name, more like a croak than a word. The surgeon stepped into view, cap still on, eyes tired. We removed the mass, no complications so far. He glanced at the monitor, then back at me. Pathology will tell us more, but structurally things went as planned. Structurally was a strange word to describe a brain. Did you get all of it? My tongue felt huge, but the question pushed through. He held his fingers close together, showing a small gap. As much as we safely could, without touching critical tissue. He studied my face as he added the next piece. You may feel different, emotions, impulses, all of that. He lifted one shoulder in a tiny shrug. Some changes for the better, some strange, some hard to predict. I stared at the ceiling, or tried to, eyes still unfocused. I wondered if they had already met the new version. Pain crept in slowly as the meds faded at the edges. Not sharp, more like a heavy band tightening around my skull. A nurse pushed something into the IV, and it eased a little. My ex sat down carefully, like the chair might reject her. She watched me like I might vanish again, even lying there. Do you remember the last fight we had? Her eyes stayed on my hands, not my face. Images flickered, hallway, duffel bag, my kid's bedroom door. Yeah. The word came out quiet, and it hurt more than the incision. I hear that seem different now. She rubbed her palms together as if they were cold. It is like listening to a stranger using your voice. She finally looked up, searching for something in my expression. I do not know how to line that up with this. Not gonna lie, I wanted the tumor to be a magic eraser. Some clean story where a doctor says it and everyone hugs. Instead, I felt guilty and relieved at the same time. I remember every ugly sentence, tumor or not. My throat tightened as I said it, but I needed it out. She blinked hard and exhaled slowly. The doctor told me this thing changes impulse control. She tapped her temple with 2 fingers, gentle. That explains why you blew up so fast and never slowed down. Her mouth twisted on explains like she did not trust it. It explains, it does not undo. The words surprised me even as they left my mouth. A few months earlier, I would have grabbed the excuse with both hands. Now lying there with stitches in my skull, it felt wrong. I still own what I did while it was there. She looked almost offended at how fast I took the blame. You are supposed to lean on the medical reason right now. She shook her head, confused, maybe a little angry at the shift. Everyone keeps telling me not to feel guilty for leaving you. Her jaw flexed as she fought whatever came next. Do you? I forced the question out before I could polish it. Feel guilty, I mean. Honestly, that was probably unfair with tubes still in my arm. She answered anyway, because that is the kind of person she is. Every time they say tumor, I replay each day I called you selfish. Her voice dropped softer, almost like talking to herself. I wonder if I should have dragged you here sooner. She wiped at the corner of one eye with her thumb. Then I remember our kid shrinking away from you and I freeze. I knew exactly the moment she meant without asking. Him clutching his backpack, me barking, her stepping between us. My chest ached in a way that had nothing to do with surgery. I do not want you rewriting this into you being the villain. I cleared my throat, slow, fragile. I was sick and I was also an ass. That line tasted honest and disgusting at the same time. Both can be true, right? She huffed out a broken laugh, somewhere between agreement and disbelief. Yeah, apparently both can be painfully true. The next days blurred, but in a different way than before. This time I knew why my memory hiccuped: drugs and swelling. Therapists came in with clipboards and simple tasks. Name 5 animals, draw a clock, repeat 3 words. It felt childish and terrifying at once. Once a therapist asked me to list months backward. I lost the pattern halfway, numbers and names tangled. Old me would have snapped, blamed the test, blamed the person. Instead I closed my eyes, breathed and tried again slower. I still messed it up, but I did not bark at anyone. Notice how you stopped yourself there. The therapist smiled, not in a fake way, more impressed. Your frustration rose, but you did not let it run the show. Her comment hit me harder than the actual exercise. Maybe the breaks worked now, at least a little. The first time they let my kid visit, I almost refused. I did not want him seeing me wired up and weak. He walked in clutching a small toy car, eyes cautious. His steps slowed as he got closer to the bed. He looked older than he should have in that moment. Hey buddy. My voice cracked and I hated that it sounded like crying. He glanced at my bandaged head, then at the heart monitor. Does it hurt? He gripped the rail like he thought I might roll away. A bit, but the medicine helps, I promise. I lifted my hand slowly, giving him time to pull back. He placed his smaller hand on top, very light. I had a bad thing in my head and they took most of it out. I kept my eyes on his face, waiting to see if that landed. They said you had a bump on your brain. He frowned, trying to connect grown-up words. Is that why you yelled so much? There it was, direct, no fluff, kid logic. My stomach flipped, but I answered. It made me too mad too fast, yeah. I squeezed his fingers carefully, not too tight. But I still scared you, that part is on me. His mouth pressed into a line as he thought about that. I was scared you did not like me anymore. That sentence hit harder than any scan result. I swallowed and felt something in my chest crack open. I love you more than anything, even when I acted wrong. The monitor beeped faster for a few seconds as I talked. He watched it like it might call me out for lying. My ex sat in the corner, quiet, watching both of us. When he finally climbed onto the edge of the bed, she relaxed a little. He leaned against my side, careful of the tubes. I felt his weight and realized how long I had been checked out. The guilt settled in heavy, but it felt honest instead of defensive. After he left, she stayed, hands wrapped around a paper cup. You cried in front of him. It sounded like a simple observation, but there was something else. I have not seen you cry in years. She studied my face like she was cataloging this new behavior. I could not hold it back. I wiped under my eyes with the heel of my hand. It is like someone ripped a filter out of my chest. I gave a weak laugh, half embarrassed. Maybe that piece was attached to the tumor. She rolled her eyes at that, but without the old venom. Doc said sometimes people get more emotional after surgery. She sipped the drink, thinking that through. Maybe this is closer to who you were before everything went sideways. Her voice softened just a touch on that last word. Do you want that guy back? I tossed the question out, instantly wondering if it was unfair. She let out a long breath and stared at the floor. I do not even know if I remember him clearly. She rubbed her forehead where my scar mirrored her gesture. I remember a version who listened and did not terrify our kid. She looked at me again, more steady, more sure. I care about whether that version gets to raise him. She shifted in the chair, spine straightening. That is not the same as wanting to be married anymore. Hearing it like that hurt, but in a clean way. No yelling, no slammed doors, just a hard truth laid out. I nodded because arguing now would prove her right. I get that, I really do. My face burned, but not with anger this time. I will show up anyway, even if you do not forgive me. The promise came out before I edited it. Therapy follow-ups, whatever list they give me, I will do it. She watched me carefully, weighing whether this was another performance. I believed you before and got burned. This time you will have doctors in the loop. I tried a crooked smile, aware of how strange that sounded. External witnesses, medical charts, appointment logs. Her mouth twitched despite herself at the phrase. Trust but verify, right? She nodded once, the tiniest agreement. You are getting discharged in a few days if recovery holds. She checked the schedule hanging at the end of the bed. I will drive you home, but I am not moving back in. Each part landed like steps on a staircase I did not like but understood. The first night I slept more than an hour straight, I woke up shaking. Not from pain, from a dream where I was screaming at no one. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the quiet rhythm of the machines. I hated that version of me so much I almost could not breathe. The fear of slipping back into him sat heavy on my chest. A nurse came in to check vitals and adjust something. "You okay? You look like you saw a ghost." I almost said I did, the ghost was just me. Instead, I asked for the on-call psych consult the surgeon mentioned. That decision felt bigger than the signature on the consent form. When the hospital therapist showed up, I did not play it cool. "I need help making sure I do not become that guy again." I laid it out messy and fast, no sugar. Headaches, rage, disappearing acts, kid flinching, divorce papers, tumor. She listened without interrupting, which somehow hurt in a good way. "Good news is you are asking before you leave." She clicked her pen and made a note on the chart. "Some people vanish as soon as the stitches come out." That line made my stomach twist because past me absolutely would have. Now the idea scared me more than scalpels. We mapped out a plan, simple but heavy. Neuro follow-up, counseling, maybe meds, maybe support groups. Words like accountability and coping actually landed this time. Not as buzzwords, more as tools I had refused to pick up. I realized I had never really tried to manage myself, just everyone else. The day they rolled me down for discharge, my ex waited by the doors. She had our kid with her, holding her hand tight. He spotted me first and waved with his free arm. "Hey, you did not die." The honesty made 3 nurses choke back laughs. "Not yet, kiddo, you are stuck with me longer." I reached out and ruffled his hair very gently. The movement tugged at the stitches and I winced. He noticed and stepped closer instead of backing away. That tiny move felt like a second chance wrapped in 4 feet of person. On the ride home, the car felt both familiar and strange. Every stop sign and turn carried echoes of old blackouts. My ex drove hands steady, eyes on the road. "You follow every appointment they give you, no arguments." She did not phrase it as a suggestion, and she was right. "I will, and if I start slipping, you tell me." I watched her profile in the windshield reflection. "Even if we are not together, I want you calling it out." She kept her gaze forward and took a slow breath. "If I tell you, you listen, that is the condition." I agreed without flinching, because fear can be a strong motivator. Fear of losing my son's trust again, fear of my own brain, fear of myself. I rested my head against the seat and closed my eyes. For once, the space behind my eyelids did not feel like missing time. It felt like a place where I finally had to sit with what I had done and what I might still fix. I signed the divorce papers on a Tuesday. My hand was steady, which bothered me more than if it shook. The clerk slid the file away and called the next name. That was it. No speech, no slow music, just my marriage leaving in a manila folder. My ex waited for me in the hallway, 1 foot tapping. "Custody schedule stays the same." She checked her phone, not my face. "Nothing changes there unless you miss something." That last line landed like a warning and a test. I will not miss anything. I tucked my copy under my arm like it weighed nothing. I set 3 alarms for every pickup, every drop-off. She looked up at that just for a second. "We both know alarms were never your problem." We walked out of the building together, a few steps apart. Wind pushed at us, and I pulled my jacket tighter. "Do you ever think we could have made it if they found it sooner?" The question slipped out before I shaped it. She stopped on the stairs and turned toward me. "I used to torture myself with that." Her eyes were tired, not angry. "I ran that version of our life on a loop." She shoved her hands into her pockets like she needed anchor points. "I have to live in the one we actually got." "Fair." I nodded and did not chase it further. "We still have the follow-up scan next month." She gave one short nod, back to business mode. "I will drive you, our kid will sleep better if I know the result firsthand." First big test came the next weekend. My son stood in my doorway with his backpack and a guarded look. "You sure you remember it is your weekend?" He tried to make it sound like a joke. I felt that question in my spine. Yeah, I set reminders and told my boss and my therapist. I crouched to his height and tapped my phone. 3 different people will yell at me if I forget. His mouth twitched into half a smile. Mom made you get a therapist too. Actually, that one was my idea. I watched his eyebrows jump like he did not buy it. I want help staying the version you saw in the hospital. He shifted the backpack on his shoulder, testing that idea. So the one that cried and did not disappear. Pretty much that one, yeah. I stepped aside and let him move past me. He walked inside, eyes scanning like he was checking for ghosts. Last time he stayed here regularly, I was someone else. Every object in the house probably carried a memory for him. He dropped the backpack near the couch and glanced around. Can I leave my shoes there or will you yell? The question hit harder than any insult. Shoes are fine, yelling is off the table. I held my palms up like I was surrendering. He tested me on day 1 and did not know it. Spilled juice, loud game volume, a toy car under my foot. Each moment lit a fuse inside my chest. There was this split second where old me would have exploded. I felt that wave rise, then I actually caught it. The therapist had given me a stupid little script. Name what you feel, look around, breathe, then speak. So I did it right there with sticky liquid on the floor. I am getting irritated, I am not going to shout. He watched me like he was watching a wild animal try tricks. We can wipe it up. He grabbed paper towels and knelt beside the mess. No cowering, no flinch, just problem solving. That simple reaction almost broke me. I turned away for a second and took one more breath. Later that weekend, during a card game, he asked it. Were you bad on purpose or did your brain make you? Cards stopped moving between us. That was the question I had avoided even with doctors. He just lobbed it across the table like homework. I chose some things, the tumor pushed others. I sorted the words carefully, like live wires. I did not try hard enough to fight the way it pushed. He tapped a card against the deck, thinking. So you and your brain were both jerks. Yeah, that is not an unfair way to put it. He put the card down and studied my face. Are you mad I said that? No. He nodded like he had been waiting to see if I snapped. Therapy dug deeper than his questions ever could. One session, my therapist held up 2 sticky notes. On this one, total victim of biology. She lifted the other. On this one, total monster who knew exactly what he was doing. She slapped them both on the table between us. Where are you honestly? I stared at them a long time, stomach flipping. Somewhere in the middle, sliding back and forth. Truth tasted sour in my mouth, but it was still truth. We went through specific scenes, not just feelings. The birthday party exit, the forgotten pickups, the hallway threats. Look at each one and ask yourself, could you have paused? In almost every memory, the answer was yes. I just never believed I needed to. That is where responsibility lives. She tapped the space between her notes. You were impaired, and you also protected your ego more than your family. That line burned through every defense I had left. I left that session exhausted and strangely lighter. Work was a different battlefield. My manager scheduled a meeting and closed the office door gently. I am glad you are alive. He stayed standing, like sitting might make this too casual. I also need to talk about the months before the collapse. I had crafted speeches for this, none felt right now. I was hostile and unreliable even before I passed out. He nodded slowly, waiting for more. I scared coworkers, I tanked client calls, I lied about simple stuff. The words clattered out one by one. Some people want to transfer away from your projects. He watched my reaction with a wary eye. I explained the medical situation, they still remember how you treated them. Honestly, I could not blame any of them. I will eat whatever consequences come with that. We worked out a phased return, fewer clients, more oversight. Past me would have thrown a fit at the idea. Current me accepted it like a sentence I had earned. I am going to therapy, I am following neurology appointments. I offered the plan before he had to ask. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed loosely. If your actions match that, we rebuild trust. He almost smiled. If they do not, this place will not be part of your comeback arc. Fair again. Monthly, then quarterly, the scans became their own rhythm. The MRI machine and I got uncomfortably familiar. Every time they slid me in, the same thought hit. What if this thing grew back while I was busy celebrating growth? That fear kept me humble in a weird, unpleasant way. At one follow-up, my ex sat beside me in the waiting area. She scrolled her phone, thumb moving fast, leg bouncing. "You still angry at me for leaving when I did?" The question came out softer than I planned. Her thumb stopped. "I am angry we were in a situation where I had to." She kept her gaze on the far wall. "I am angry at the tumor, at the doctors who did not catch it sooner." She swallowed hard. "And yeah, some days I am furious at you for making it worse." So basically, everyone takes a turn. I tried to make it light, it came out tired. She glanced at me, then away. Some nights I also feel grateful I left before something unforgivable happened. There was a lot inside that word unforgivable that she did not unpack. The neurologist finally came out with a folder under his arm. "Imaging looks stable, no sign of regrowth right now." I let out a breath I did not know I had locked. "You will still need yearly scans, but this is good news." Good and temporary, that is how it sounded in my head. Outside the building, my ex stopped before heading to the car. "He asked last week if you are still sick inside." She watched my face tighten. "I told him the doctors cleaned out the dangerous part." She paused. "I also told him we all still have to work on how we treat people." That addition hit me almost harder than the scan result. "Thank you for not making me the big scary lesson." She raised an eyebrow. "Trust me, you were already a lesson, this just changes the curriculum." At home that night, I opened old messages I used to avoid. Texts where I gaslit her, threads with my friends that I abandoned. Reading them with a clearer mind felt like reading someone's confession. Same phone, same number, but the tone felt alien. I actually said those things, though tumor or not. I drafted a long message to her 3 different times. One leaned too hard on the tumor story. One turned into a self-pity dump halfway through. The third tried to be balanced, honest, short. In the end, I deleted all 3. We talk enough now in real time about schedules and school events. Apologies land better when they show up as changed behavior. Showing up early, answering calls, staying regulated when things go sideways. Those are the sentences she reads most closely. I try to write them with actions instead of words. So why am I writing all this out to strangers online? One of my friends sent a link to a thread last week. Some guy ranting about his psycho ex who left him for no reason. Half the comments cheered him on, half called him out. All I saw was a mirror I did not like. I realized how easy it would be for me to play that role. Tell you my wife Bilade the second things got hard. Blame her for not waiting for a diagnosis nobody mentioned. Leave out the part where I terrified her and our kid. Package myself as the tragic patient instead of the complicated human. So here it is, unflattering pieces and all. I lost my marriage in the gap between who I thought I was and what my brain was doing. I hurt people I loved while something grew inside my skull and I refused to listen. Surgery saved my life and also stripped away some of my favorite excuses. Now I get to wake up every day and figure out who is actually in here. Some days I feel like the guy from before the tumor took the wheel. Some days I catch flashes of that raging version and have to clamp down hard. Most days I am somewhere in between, trying to do less damage. My ex co-parents with me, my kid is slowly trusting that I will stay. The tumor is gone enough, the consequences are not. You tell me. If you were in her place, would you have left sooner, later, ever? If you were in mine, would you lean on the diagnosis or carry the blame? When you look at this story, do you see a victim, an abuser, or something messier? Because that is what keeps me up on the good nights when my head is finally quiet enough to ask.